So good afternoon everybody, or better yet, good evening. We're at the wrap-up of the GLF event focusing on climate action in the landscapes, and I'm here with Jennifer Morgan, who is the Executive Director of Greenpeace, who has just wrapped up the event. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you very much.
It's very good to have you here and have the perspective of the insights from Greenpeace to our event. So we've been talking a lot about how we're moving from commitments to action and how we have to move faster. What do you think are the main challenges we need to tackle at the moment?
Well, I think one of the main challenges is that the companies and the governments that have made commitments need to actually keep them. So I've been rather shocked to find that the Consumer Goods Forum companies that committed into kind of phasing out, well, to zero deforestation, that none of them are on track right now. And so I think one key thing, obviously, is that they double down, that they need to keep their commitments. So I think that's a key thing, because it makes such a difference on the ground, obviously, to local communities as well as for the climate. I also think it's really important, people are acting, which is good, but I think we need policy, we need regulations, we need that on the national level in order that, that things move forward. So whether and there's lots of different examples of that, right? But I think the idea that, action can't just be voluntary action. Action needs to be part of a whole spectrum of, implementation of policies, as well as what individuals can be doing.
Okay, and can you give me an example of things, or of a situation where things are going well, for example, where action is taking place?
Yeah, I'm really actually quite inspired right now about what's happening in the world of meat and dairy, believe it or not. So on the local level, I think you're seeing Greenpeace has been working on a Less and Better Meat and Dairy campaign. Mm-hmm. And, in France, actually, public schools are now moving forward with legislation and policy to do more plant-based diets. In Washington, D.C., they've made a decision for schools to go more into plant-based diets. And we're actually seeing that I think people, the combination of understanding that eating meat is part of what's causing climate change, are willing to act in that level. And I think it's high time that attention is paid on the meat side of things as well.
And how do we make consumers around the world, and especially in these meat-eating nations, how do we resonate with them and make them understand? How do we change behavior at an individual level? Like, what is the...
Well, I think first of all you have to meet people where they're at, and so I think, and really recognize the cultural context that this is a very personal thing. It's what you eat,
yeah.
Right? So I think finding ways of increasing plant-based diets, reducing, this is the idea. For example, in schools, it's been the parents that have actually been also engaged on that, because they see that it's good for the health of their kids as well. So I think it's important that it's personal, but it's also it's something that people can do to help do something about climate change as well, and that it's a mixture of kind of the local level there. So it needs to be simple as well.
And we've talked before and throughout the day about there's so many ideas out there, and very good ideas, and people are taking action, but not necessarily in a coordinated manner. From the NGO perspective, as a very important stakeholder, how do you see better coordination between all these ideas and different actors at the table when it comes to climate change mitigation, for example?
Well, I think, my experience is if you can get the clear goal, so if we're going to, zero by mid-century, zero emissions by mid-century, which means we have to scale up, we have to halt deforestation, we have to scale up restoration. That if you can get those clear signals and you can get that actually then into both corporate and government commitments, that I don't get too hung up about it all being coordinated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because we need everybody to do everything right now. I mean, we are in a situation where the world scientists have told us, you know, we basically have 12 years if we don't change things before 1.5 degrees hits. And that sounds small, but what we're seeing now is happening with 1 degree. So I think it's more about empowering and enabling people to engage and not worrying too much about whether it's all connected or not. The clarity of the direction, the frameworks, the policies, the regulations that need to be put in place, I think can set that and then, you know, allow people to engage. I think the challenge, of course, is that you need people power in order to get the regulations in place, because it's pretty clear right now that without more public engagement, we're not getting the action. So I think that's going to be scaling up as people understand more and more the importance of the land sector.
And what about evaluating the progress that's being done? Because an idea can be good, but we don't know actually how much change it can produce. How can we improve monitoring and evaluation?
Well, it's, you know, everything from citizen science, you know, individuals reporting into NGO efforts and whether they be kind of global platforms that are monitoring what's happening on the land, to the rules that are negotiated under the Paris Agreement on accounting. Those are very important because if you have different accounting standards for different countries, and then it's never possible to actually monitor appropriately. So I think both of those are, you know, examples of what's needed.
Okay, and as a final thought, you're here for the COP24. What are Greenpeace's expectations? What should come out of this, and what do you see as the next steps that are necessary for action?
Well, Greenpeace thinks that after this immensely important signal from the world's top scientists that you know, we are moving into a climate emergency, that the political response has to happen here, which means that all countries have to agree that they're going to do more and that they're going to announce what that more is in 2020. And that, of course, and so this COP needs to send that signal and create a process of how they're going to do more. Sounds very simple and small, but getting everyone to agree that they're going to do more is a challenge, and there's a lot of work to be done there. The second thing is getting a rule book for the Paris Agreement, which actually is really tight, that makes sure that, for example, on accounting rules or on how countries report, that there are common and robust standards, that there's no kind of loophole opportunities there. And the third is that there's enough support for developing countries to do more and to implement these rules, whether that be capacity building, whether that be more finance, especially to the poorest countries. That's an incredibly important kind of balance that needs to come forward. So those are our expectations. I don't think they're only Greenpeace's expectations. I think that the young students who are striking and leaving schools around the world aren't going to be happy just coming back home with a rule book. So the signal on ambition needs to be high.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you
It was a
very
pleasure
much.
having you.
It's been a great pleasure to be here.